She did not feel broke. That was the strange part. She had a good job, a decent salary. She ordered food when she was tired, which was most evenings. She bought the nicer version of things, the better moisturizer, the mid-range headphones, the gym membership she used twice a month. She streamed 4 different platforms. She upgraded her phone on schedule. She tipped generously because she was not the kind of person who did not tip generously. At the end of each month, there was nothing left. Not because of an emergency. Not because of a crisis. Just because of Tuesday. Just because of the quiet, constant, completely reasonable decisions that added up to a life that cost exactly as much as she made. Sometimes more. She was not irresponsible. She was comfortable. And comfort, it turns out, is one of the most expensive things you can buy. Today we are going to talk about comfort spending. Not the obvious kind, not the impulse buy you regret, not the vacation you probably should not have taken. The invisible kind. The kind that lives inside your normal routine and feels completely justified because, frankly, it is. Each individual purchase makes sense. It is only when you pull back and look at the total that something goes wrong. And right now, in this economy, it is going wrong for a lot of people simultaneously. Consumer savings rates in the United States hit a 17-year low in 2023. The personal savings rate dropped to around 3.4%. For context, the historical average sits closer to 8%. Meanwhile, consumer credit card debt crossed $1 trillion for the first time in history. People are not spending recklessly. They are spending comfortably. The distinction matters enormously. To understand how this trap works, you need to understand something called lifestyle creep. It is not a new concept, but it is operating at a scale and speed we have never seen before. Here is how it starts. You get a raise. Not a massive one. Maybe 7%. Enough to feel meaningful. For about 3 weeks, you feel ahead. Then, almost without deciding to, you upgrade something small. Maybe you start buying coffee instead of making it. Maybe you switch from the budget gym to the nicer one. Maybe you start ordering groceries delivered instead of going yourself because your time now feels more valuable. None of these decisions is dramatic. Each one is defensible. Combined, they consume the raise entirely. Sometimes more than the raise. Economists call this the income-expenditure gap closure. When income rises, spending rises to match it, not because people are foolish, but because the threshold for what feels normal quietly shifts. What felt like a luxury last year feels like a baseline this year. And once something becomes baseline, removing it feels like deprivation. That is the trap, not the spending. The recalibration of normal. Now layer on top of that something the modern economy did not invent but absolutely perfected, the subscription model. Go ahead and count your subscriptions. Do not guess, actually count them. Most people underestimate by 40%. That is not speculation. A 2022 survey by Chase Bank found that the average American spends around $219 per month on subscription services and underestimates that total by $133. Nearly a $100 gap between what people think they are spending and what they are actually spending. That gap exists because subscriptions are architected to disappear into the background. A 9.99 charge does not feel like a decision. It does not require you to take out your wallet. It does not even require you to remember it. It just happens, month after month, in amounts too small to trigger concern but large enough to matter enormously over time. $12 a month is $144 a year. Multiply that across 8 or 9 subscriptions, some of which you have not opened in 4 months, and you are looking at north of $1,000 annually on things you did not actively choose to keep paying for. The subscription model is not evil. It is just extremely good at making spending feel like existing. But subscriptions are just one piece. The deeper mechanism is something behavioral economists call pain of paying. When you pay for something with cash, you feel it. Studies show that spending cash activates the same region of the brain associated with physical pain. It is why casinos use chips. Removing the direct link between action and money spent changes the emotional experience entirely. Digital payments did the same thing at civilizational scale. When you tap your phone at a coffee shop, no pain registers. When you one-click purchase on a delivery app, no pain registers. The mental accounting system that is supposed to keep your spending in check simply does not receive the signal it needs. And the companies building these interfaces know this. Every design decision, the tap instead of the swipe, the saved card that never needs re-entering, the Add to Cart button that is twice the size of the total cost, is optimized to reduce friction between impulse and purchase. You are not weak. You are using a system that was engineered to make spending effortless and saving feel like an active, exhausting choice. Here is the uncomfortable math. Imagine you spend an extra $400 per month on comfort spending, coffee runs, upgraded subscriptions, food delivery fees, the slightly better version of things. That is $4,800 per year. Over 10 years, that is $48,000 spent. But here is what the number does not show. If that same $400 per month had been invested in a basic index fund averaging 8% annual returns, the rough historical average of the S&P 500, over 10 years you would have approximately $73,000. Not $48,000. Not even $48,000. $73,000. The comfort spending did not cost you $400 a month. It cost you the difference between what you spent and what that money could have become. That number is much harder to feel in the moment. That is precisely why it works. This is where it connects to something larger. And this part is important. We are living through what behavioral economists are starting to call the comfort economy. This is an economic environment specifically designed to monetize the desire for frictionlessness, ease, and immediate relief. Tired? Here is delivery. Bored? Here is content. Stressed? Here is retail therapy, one click away. Lonely? Here is a premium upgrade that makes the experience feel more personal. Every human discomfort that used to require effort to solve now has a paid product attached to it. The market did not create these discomforts. Stress, boredom, fatigue, loneliness are not new. But it did build an infrastructure around them that converts emotional states directly into transactions. And the timing is not coincidental. Wages for working and middle-class households have been essentially flat in real terms for decades when adjusted for inflation. Housing costs have soared. Healthcare has compounded. The structural pathways to wealth, pension plans, affordable homeownership, defined benefit retirements, have been quietly dismantled or moved out of reach for a significant portion of the population. What remained, and what expanded aggressively, was access to consumption. You cannot afford a house, but you can afford to eat well. You cannot build equity, but you can upgrade your mattress. The things that feel like self-care and quality of life are often the things filling the psychological space where financial security used to live. That is not a personal failing. That is a structural condition being experienced as a personal choice. Now here is where the irony sharpens. The comfort spending trap does not just prevent savings. It actively works against the psychological conditions required to save at all. Here is what that means. Saving requires delayed gratification, the belief that giving up something now leads to something better later. That belief requires a baseline of financial optimism. It requires feeling like the future is a place worth investing in. But when people are financially stressed, when savings feel impossible and the gap between where you are and where you want to be feels insurmountable, the brain does something predictable. It shortens its time horizon. It prioritizes now over later because later stops feeling real. Behavioral economists call this hyperbolic discounting. The further away a reward is, the less your brain values it. $100 today feels worth more than $150 in a year, even though any calculator will tell you that is objectively wrong. Comfort spending feeds directly into this shortened time horizon. It is not just spending. It is a symptom of a system in which many people have quietly given up on a financial future they can no longer picture and replaced it with a present that at least feels manageable. So who wins? The platforms win. The delivery apps win. The subscription companies win. The brands who successfully position their products as self-care and emotional investment win. And the individual sits at the end of the month, account at or near zero, having done nothing obviously wrong and everything quietly expensive. The system is not broken. It is functioning exactly as designed. It is just designed for someone other than you. None of this ends with an easy answer. Anyone who offers you one is selling something, possibly in 6 easy payments. What it ends with is a question worth sitting with. If the structures that once created financial security, stable jobs, affordable housing, pensions, savings rates that made sense on average wages, have either eroded or become inaccessible, and if the market has filled that vacuum with increasingly sophisticated mechanisms to monetize comfort and ease, then what does it actually mean to be financially responsible in that environment? Is it discipline? Is it systems? Is it structural reform? Is it something nobody has named yet? Because the person spending $400 a month on frictionless living is not the villain of this story. They are a rational human being responding to a set of conditions that were not designed with their wealth in mind. The question is whether knowing that changes anything. And the honest answer is, it should. But knowing is only the beginning. The structure around you will not change because you understood it. It keeps running month after month, in amounts too small to trigger concern. Just like the subscriptions.